Morning. Hello 5B. Right, carrying on with The Other Side of Truth. This is chapter 36, which is called Sorry. Mist wrapped itself around the school. It threaded through the skeleton trees that lined the driveway and clung to the frost-bitten bushes opposite them. Very early in the morning, sometimes there is mist in the forest. It lifts in waves like a long-tailed bird forced into the open, forced to reveal the nest it wanted to hide. Scents of forest and damp earth rise up with the mist. Grandma never allows them out of the compound until the mist has gone. She tells stories of people who lose their way because of it. Stories of Ewin, the tree sprites who play wild games and make the wanderers scramble out of the woods with eyes flickering and madness on their tongues. Sade peered through the gloom ahead. She recognised the slim figure walking alone with her head bent, covered by a scarf, and she hurried up to catch up with Mariam. "Please, can we go somewhere? There's something I need to tell you," Sade whispered. Her heart pounded. The hall was hardly private. If Marcia and Donna were there, Sade did not want to see them. However, the noisy batches of students took no notice of them as they weaved their way towards an unoccupied corner. Mariam turned to Sade with folded arms. Her dark eyes waited, silently on guard. "I stole from your uncle's shop. A lighter, a cigarette lighter." Sade watched for horror and disgust to change the silent face. But not a muscle seemed to move. Mariam's gaze remained steady, as steadfast as Mama's eyes would have been. "Marcia said her cousin would hurt my brother." Sade forced herself to continue. "She came with Donna and me. I took the lighter while they kept talking to your uncle and..." Sade hesitated. Her heart was flapping wildly. That lady, she is your mother, isn't she?" Mariam nodded, and Sade watched the navy blue headscarf ripple slightly. She recalled how the thin, bony-faced woman in Dowd's store had also stared at her in this guarded way. "My mother, my uncle, they know about the lighter." Mariam's voice was so soft and flat that Sade was unsure she'd heard correctly. "Marcia and Donna, they do the same to me," Mariam continued evenly. "But you stopped talking with me, like you don't want to be my friend." Mariam accused her quietly. You all know? Why didn't your uncle stop me? What did Marcia do to you?" Sade's tongue felt dry and clumsy as her questions stumbled over each other. She ignored the shrill ringing over the tannoy. "They make me steal. From uncle. I must give them gold pen, or they do something bad, like fire. But I tell Mama and uncle, and he give me the pen. He say, let them think you steal it. People like that are no good. Don't fight them, just keep away. I give Marcia the pen, and they leave me alone. But now I see them start with you." Sade did not know what to say or where to look. So Mariam and her family had known all along. Papa would surely have said the same thing as Mariam's uncle. How did people know what was the right thing to do? It was all so confusing. Yet she admired Mariam for telling her mother and uncle. At least they'd faced the threats together. The hall was almost empty. Sade forced herself to look into Mariam's face. The bell was ringing again. "I'm sorry," she said. "You told me all about your uncle and your mother." Mariam had even spoken about her father's death and her brother who was missing. "I told you nothing." Mariam's eyes seemed to soften. "It's okay. Maybe you worried about something," she said. "Come, Morrissey go mad if we late. You see me at break?" Mr. Morris was calling the register when they entered the class. Sade expected him to say something cross or sarcastic. However, his gaze seemed to rest on her for an extra second, like he was taking a snapshot on a slow shutter speed. He simply said, "Ah, there you are." Marcia's narrowing eyes could not hide a flicker of surprise as Sade followed Mariam down the aisle. Was it seeing them together again? "Why don't you tell them off, sir? You tell us off if we come late." Donna's words were as spiky as her hair. Indeed I would, Donna, if only to hear if your latest excuse was any better than your last one. Mr. Morris's words produced muffled laughter and giggles. There even seemed to be some snorts from Kevin's desk. At the end of the register, Mr. Morris announced the class could talk quietly amongst themselves until the bell. Then he signalled to Sade. I'd like a word in private with you, Sade. Telling you off in private? That's discrimination, that is, Donna hissed into Sade's ear. Do you want me, sir? I come late with Sade. Mariam stood up with Sade. She was coming to her aid, despite everything. A friend in need, as Mama would say. No, thank you, Mariam. This concerns Sade only, said Mr. Morris. His eyes roamed the classroom. I shall be outside in the corridor. If your chattering lifts the ceiling, my Christmas present to you will be detention. Sade followed Mr. Morris, feeling dull and numb. What now? Why did he have to notice her? She had more than enough worry already. In her other life, if a teacher wanted to have words with her, she would quickly think of Ayawo, sitting quietly on her desk at home. Ayawo, who held up her graceful neck and lace-patterned head so calmly, and that soothed any butterflies in her stomach. She tried to think of her Ayawo now. But the only picture that came to mind was an Ayawo who was dried out, the wood split and cracked. The patterns on this Ayawo's hair were furrows eaten by termites. Sade bent her own head in dismay and felt herself crumbling. When Sade next opened her eyes, she was lying on a bed staring at someone misty and fuzzy. Slowly, the figure became Miss Harcourt. There was no Mr. Morris, no class, no corridor. She was in a small room full of whiteness, white walls around her, white sheet beneath her, white screen at the end of the bed, white chair beside her. Miss Harcourt asked how she was feeling, and Sade barely managed to nod. Everything about her felt heavy, most of all her tongue. She watched the teacher's silky chestnut hair swing lightly as she tilted her head. You gave us quite a fright passing out like that. Mrs. King is on her way now. You need a doctor, but it's probably stress. We had no idea. Sade drifted in and out of listening. It seemed that the school now knew something about Papa. Did that mean they also knew about Mama? Did they know what happened to Mama after the ambulance men carried her away under the blinding white sheet? She didn't know. She didn't even know if Papa knew. She hadn't had a proper chance to ask him. If we'd known before, said Miss Harcourt, help, we could have coped. Sade shut her eyes and ears. Aunt Gracie's doctor came to the house and declared he could find nothing wrong with her. His eyes twinkled behind thick round glasses, like those of a friendly brown owl. Once again, Sade heard that word, cope. It must have been all too much to cope with, Mrs. King. Even for an adult, you know, it would be too much. What the child needs is rest, and you must encourage her to eat more. Aunt Gracie led the doctor out of the pineapple-coloured bedroom to the door. I think she finds it hard to eat because her father has stopped. And hushed tones trailed out of Sade's hearing. More next time.